What's those hands, girl? So what do hands tell us? Hands can be a complicated gesture to read because they can mean so many different things based upon the context and the situation. Where are those hands located? Are they in the pockets? Are they over the groin? Are they behind the back? Are the hands grasping the wrist? Or even creepier, grasping the forearm? Are the hands scratching, tapping, ringing, hidden, covering the mouth, the lips, rubbing the ears, rubbing the eyes? These are all called pacifying behaviors. And as you can see here, we have a baby with the pacifying behaviors. In human beings, we do the exact same thing with tapping, scratching, touching the neck. These are all pacifying behaviors. They happen after a stressful event or something that creates tension, emotional tension within us. So if you ask somebody a difficult question and they feel stress or feel tension, they will typically afterwards implement some sort of pacifying behavior. And pacifying behaviors, there are many and there are different ones according to each person. There isn't just one pacifying behavior that indicates stress or tension for everybody globally. But there's a whole host of different sorts of behaviors. But these are two of the most common. Now let's talk about how the hands and how they create barriers to expose our insecurities. Hands behind the back, for example, blocks communication, and that's rarely a good thing when we're trying to build a relationship with somebody. You may unconsciously display hostility or suspicious attitude towards someone or their ideas, even if you didn't mean to intentionally. There are different variations of crossing the arms, such as folding the arms in front or behind the back. Crossing arms in front, we can do this with open hands or with crossed hands. With crossed hands is considered much more aggressive, though it could also mean the person is cold. You may see people sometimes speaking to you this way, with the arms crossed and one arm open. This is typically a feminine gesture, but it means that they're basically breaking the ice. And once the ice is broken, typically their arms will come down and they'll expose their torso, which means they're more vulnerable, more open to you. But men do this as well when they're speaking. In body language, it's all about the context, and it's all about discovering what the person's baseline is or their normal behavior, their normal gestures. And then we're looking for a deviation in this normal behavior to detect whether the person is feeling stress or tension or something maybe is awry. For example, a very tight grip is a sign of self-restraint and tension. But years ago I observed that I often clenched my fists while speaking to people. And I couldn't figure out why I did it. And what I discovered was I was doing this on days when I had drank far too much coffee that day. So I stopped drinking as much coffee and I stopped clenching my fist. But caffeine creates tension within the body. Now we're going to talk about hands over the groin, as you can see here in this image. This is a display of strong feelings of insecurity and nervousness. It also sends a message of submissiveness, shyness, and perhaps innocence. So don't hide behind this shield if you want to appear assertive and decisive. Protecting the genitals is similar to crossing the arms. They both display defensive attitudes, but groin blocking or groin covering is even less aggressive and expresses more vulnerability. Now, clasping both hands is often misinterpreted as a sign of confidence and authority, but actually it reveals something entirely different. It reveals frustration and stress. If, for example, you stop to have a small talk with somebody at work, but they keep clasping their hands in front of them, you can maybe assume that they're not really feeling like talking with you right now. You may be asking them something that they aren't interested in talking about or aren't comfortable talking about in this moment. It's their subtle way of creating a barrier between you and them, as you can see here in the pictures. There's a direct correlation, however, between the position of the clasp and the amount of tension. If the hands lay on the table, then the tension is milder, contrary if the clasp is in front of the face or over the head. You'll see this a lot of times when people are waiting, perhaps at a doctor's office, for their appointment. Now, an interesting side note. Remember earlier in this video we talked about hand clasping behind the back? Clasping hands express self-restraint and holding oneself in place, suppressing one's tension inside. Clasping the wrist behind the back, as you can see here in this picture, in the first one, is an indication of self-restraint and is done in situations where a person is trying to hold back a negative reaction. But clasping the wrist of the arm behind the back, such as this one, the person feels some degree of self-control, but feels more tension and more stress in this photo. So we could say that the person is trying to get a good grip on themselves. The person doesn't want to display this negative and defensive attitude to people, and that's why he does a gesture behind the back. Because if he did it in front, it would be too obvious and too easy for people to figure out that the person was feeling defensive or so forth. In other words, arm crossing defensive gestures and behind the back gestures are more or less the same thing. They're feeling some negative feelings. Check out our upcoming body language webinar in 2019. Leave a comment in the box below, and we'd love to hear from you about your experiences about reading body language. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.